They didn't knock. They didn't ask. The sirens hit first. Loud, angry, right outside my gate. A woman's voice followed, sharp and proud. "That's him! Arrest him! He's trespassing." I stepped out and saw her standing there, like she owned the world, arms crossed, smiling. HOA badge hanging from her neck, shiny but fake-looking. Two men in uniform stood beside her, already moving toward me. One of them said, "Sir, you've been warned before. This land doesn't belong to you." I looked past them at the old iron fence. The same fence my grandfather built with his own hands. My phone buzzed in my pocket nonstop. Neighbors were recording from their windows. Karen leaned closer and whispered, "Last chance. Sell the land, or you leave in cuffs." I stayed calm, even when one of the fake cops grabbed my arm. Inside my chest, something burned. Not fear, memory. Because this land wasn't just land. It was inherited gold, tied to a name they clearly didn't recognize yet. I looked straight at her and said quietly, "You really picked the wrong property today." She laughed like I was joking, then snapped her fingers. A tow truck rolled in from the corner like it was waiting all along. Karen pointed at my truck and said, "Remove it. He's illegally parked on HOA land." I tried to speak, but one fake cop cut me off, pushing me back. My daughter stepped out of the house barefoot, confused, asking, "Dad, what's happening?" Karen turned, her face cold, and said, "Take that child inside. This is grown-up business." That's when they crossed a line. The tow truck lifted my truck like it meant nothing. Chains rattling, metal screaming. Neighbors whispered. Phone stayed up. No one helped. Karen leaned close again and smiled. "You see? I warned you. By tonight, this place will be locked." She held up a paper and slapped it on my gate. Eviction notice. HOA stamp. Bold letters. Fake, but scary enough to shake anyone. My daughter grabbed my hand tighter. I felt her fingers trembling. I looked at the notice, then at the uniforms, then at Karen. I slowly pulled my phone out and pressed record. "Say that again," I said calmly. "Say I don't own this land." Her smile grew wider. "Gladly," she replied. And that was the moment she gave me everything I needed. She raised her voice on purpose, loud enough for every camera around. "You are on protected HOA land. You were told to sell. You refused. Now you're being removed." One of the fake cops nodded and reached for his radio, acting serious. "Dispatch, we have a non-compliant subject." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I stepped back and said, "Before you do anything, you might want to check the county records." Karen rolled her eyes. "We already did. This land belongs to the association." She said it too fast, too confident. The fake cop moved closer, lowering his voice. "Sir, don't make this harder. You don't look like someone who can afford lawyers." That's when I knew how deep this went. I tapped my phone and sent one message. Just one. No long talk. No panic. Karen didn't notice. She was busy telling the neighbors. People like him think they can cheat the system. Minutes passed. The air felt heavy. Then a black SUV slowed at the end of the road and stopped. Karen frowned. "Who's that?" she asked. I didn't answer. My phone buzzed once. Message received. I looked at her and said softly, "This land was never for sale. And the man who left it to me made sure of that." Her smile finally slipped. The SUV door opened, slow and calm. A man stepped out, no uniform, no rush, just confidence. One of the fake cops stiffened when he saw him. Karen waved her hand. "This is a private HOA matter. You can't be here." The man didn't even look at her. He looked at me and said, "Sorry I'm late. Traffic?" Then he turned to the fake cops and asked, very casually, "Can I see your badges?" Silence hit hard. One of them laughed nervously and said, "We don't need to show anything to you." The man nodded, pulled out his wallet and flipped it open just enough. Color drained from their faces. Karen stepped back. "What is this? Who are you?" she snapped. He finally looked at her. "County investigator and former military police." He pointed at the tow truck. "Drop the vehicle, now." The driver didn't ask questions. He lowered my truck fast. Chains clanged. Karen started shouting, "This is harassment! He's lying!" The investigator turned to me and said, "You still have the original deed." I reached into the house and came back with a worn folder. Edges yellow, signature old. Karen stared at it like it was poison. The investigator smiled slightly. Good, because this land doesn't belong to any HOA. He paused, then added, It's classified as protected family property. With mineral rights, Karen whispered. That's impossible. I looked at her and said, That's the gold part you ignored. Her face went pale, but she tried to fight it. That deed is fake, she shouted. He made it up. The investigator didn't argue. He pulled out his phone and played a video on full volume. Karen's voice filled the street clear as day. We'll scare him out. Use uniforms. He'll fold. Neighbors gasped. Phones shook. One of the fake cops stepped back, shaking his head. She said it was legal, he muttered. The investigator turned to them. Impersonating officers is a felony. Karen screamed, Turn that off. Then real sirens came. Different sound, heavier. 2 real patrol cars rolled in. Real cops stepped out, calm, sharp. They listened, watched the video, checked the badges. One officer looked at Karen and said, Ma'am, put your hands behind your back. She froze. You can't do this. I run this HOA. The officer replied, Not anymore. As they cuffed her, she locked eyes with me, full of hate. You think you won? She spat. I leaned closer and said quietly, You haven't even seen the bill yet. That was when the investigator added, By the way, the gold rights make this land federal interest protected. Karen stopped breathing for a second. The street went dead silent. They put her in the back of the car. But the story didn't stop there. One officer walked over to me and said, Sir, we need to ask, have you been pressured to sell this land before? I nodded. For 2 years. He raised his eyebrows. Then this isn't just harassment. Karen started screaming from the car. He's lying. He planned this. The investigator shook his head and opened a file. Inside were emails, messages, fake HOA letters, all traced back to her laptop. He said calmly, She's been forcing owners out. Cheap buys. Then reselling. A neighbor spoke up, voice shaking. She did that to us too. Another joined. Then another. Karen's power cracked in real time. The officer turned to me and said, You know your grandfather reported a similar offer in the 80s? That hit me hard. I never knew that. He continued. He refused. Same land. Same reason. I looked at my house, the fence, the soil under my feet. This wasn't random. Karen hadn't found me. She followed the land, I whispered. So this was planned. The investigator nodded. Very planned, and very illegal. Karen slammed her head back against the seat, realizing the truth too late. Court moved fast, too fast for her to twist anything. The footage, the fake uniforms, the tow order, the eviction notice, all of it lined up clean. She sat there in silence while the judge read the charges: fraud, impersonation, conspiracy, abuse of authority. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I just said, I was told to sell my family land or lose my home. The judge looked at her and said, HOA power is not ownership. That line hit the room hard. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. Karen tried to hide her face, but the cuffs told the story. Reporters asked me why I didn't fight back earlier. I looked at the mic and said, Some land doesn't need shouting. It has records. The investigator stood beside me and added, And history. Later that evening, I took my daughter back to the gate. The fake notice was gone. The fence stood quiet. She asked, Dad, are they gone forever? I knelt and said, No one can take what they don't own. The sun dipped low, gold light touching the ground, and for the first time, the land felt safe again. Weeks later, letters arrived. Not threats this time. Apologies. Settlements. The HOA was dissolved. Board replaced, rules erased. The land was officially marked protected. My name locked into records no one could touch again. One evening, I stood there with my daughter, watching workers remove the old HOA sign from the road. It fell with a dull thud. She smiled and said, So they can't tell us what to do now? I smiled back. They never could. I thought about my grandfather, about how he stood his ground when it was harder, when cameras didn't exist. I finally understood why he never sold. This land wasn't just gold under the soil. It was proof. Proof that fake power is loud, but real ownership is silent and strong. As the sun went down, a neighbor called out, You did good. I nodded once. Not proud, just calm. Because freedom doesn't need permission, and land remembers who truly belongs to it. Months passed, but the story kept echoing. Karen's name was in news reports, local blogs, even a viral thread showing her fake badges and the videos of her screaming. People remembered. HOA groups reformed, stricter rules were put in place, and other families who'd been bullied quietly reached out, thanking me for standing firm. One night, as my daughter slept, I walked the land, fingers brushing the tall grass. I found a small patch of soil shining, faintly in the sunset, gold dust, from old veins my grandfather had marked decades ago. I smiled, thinking, this is ours. Always was. A message pinged on my phone. Another neighbor sending a photo of Karen, trying to start a new HOA elsewhere. I scrolled past, didn't reply. She had lost her power, finally. And deep down, I knew the real victory wasn't just the land. It was showing my daughter that courage, patience, and the law could beat even the loudest liar. The wind carried a soft whistle through the trees, and I whispered, "Welcome home." For good this time. Spring came, and with it, new life on the property. Trees bloomed where the old fence had shadowed the ground, and flowers grew along the edges of the driveway, untouched by any HOA nonsense. My daughter ran ahead, laughing, her small hands picking wildflowers, while I followed slowly, noticing every corner of the land, every stone my grandfather had placed. A neighbor waved from across the street, smiling, holding up a newspaper clipping, HOA Karen faces federal charges. I nodded, letting the victory sink in quietly. No celebrations, no shouting, just the steady pulse of freedom and justice. That night, as the sun set behind the hills, I sat on the porch, daughter on my lap, and whispered, "No one will ever scare us off again." The wind carried her laughter across the fields, and I finally felt it, the land, the gold, the history, and the future, all safe, all ours, forever. Then came an unexpected twist. One morning, a man I'd never met appeared at the gate, briefcase in hand, looking serious but polite. "Sir," he said, "I represent a federal land audit team. Your property has rare mineral deposits, gold veins officially documented. We need to survey, protect, and register it federally." My stomach sank and then lifted. This was bigger than I imagined, beyond HOA drama, beyond fake cops. My daughter peeked around my legs, wide-eyed. I looked at the man and said, "You mean no one can ever touch this land?" He nodded. "It's now legally untouchable. Protected under federal law." Karen's schemes had failed spectacularly, but now the land itself had a shield stronger than any court. I felt a strange pride, a quiet satisfaction. All the threats, all the harassment, every fake cop, they had led to this. My daughter tugged my hand. "Can we play in the field now?" I smiled, feeling the weight of victory settle fully. "Yes." "Finally, we can play." And as we ran through the tall grass, the wind seemed to whisper, "Some battles are fought for land, but one for family, courage, and history itself." Weeks turned into months and life settled into a peaceful rhythm. The neighbors who had once watched from their windows now waved freely, planting gardens, barbecuing, and laughing together. Every so often, someone would ask about Karen, still in court for multiple charges, her reputation in shreds. I didn't gloat. I just walked the property, feeling the earth beneath my feet, sunlight glinting off the hidden veins of gold. My daughter ran ahead, her laughter echoing across the fields, her small voice carrying a sense of freedom I'd never known before. One evening, I stood at the top of the hill, looking over the land that had nearly been stolen, and whispered to myself, "This is ours. Always was, always will be." The wind stirred, rustling the tall grass, and for the first time in years, the land felt alive in a way that had nothing to do with ownership. Alive. Because justice had been served, courage had prevailed, and a family's bond had protected its legacy. End the story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing HOA stories.